Welcome back. I'm Rod Nelson with How to Make a Social Network with Codeigniter. Today we're going to kind of just follow our little thing here we made up in the last video. So I'm going to show you the intro here. What we're going to do is we're going to set up the login system today. It's probably going to be a long video. This lesson may take more than one video, but I'm still going to call it a lesson 2. Last time, all we did was set up all our setups that we needed to get Codeigniter working for our website. So let's jump right into the setup. We got a couple config files we got to change, and then we'll jump into the controller. Okay, so like I said, we're going to be in our application most of the time unless I tell you otherwise. So we're going to start, we need to do our config files, so we're going to go into config. First one we're going to work with is auto load. I know we added a few things last time, but I needed a few more. So let's get into the auto load file. Okay, since we're going to be working with forms, we're going to need form validation. We're also going to be working with the database, so we need to turn on the database. And we're also going to be working with the session by the end, so we're going to need the session. Okay, we also need to load some helpers. We need to load the URL helper, which I believe we already had loaded. And we also need a form helper. This is going to help us set up our forms and make everything go a lot faster. And that is it for that file. Okay, so the next file we need to go into is we need to open up the database.php. Now I have not filled in any of this stuff because I don't want to give my password and my database information away. This is the way you're going to see it if you download it. So let's get down past this information here. Okay, these are what we're going to need. We can leave the top two alone. We don't need them at all. All we're going to really need is we're going to need the host name. That would be your host name or a local host if you're just hosting it on your own web server. The username for the database, the password for the database, and then the database name. We'll go into a little bit extra here later. I'll show you how I create it, or what's all in the database and stuff like that. The rest of the stuff, the reason I got a space in there is because we don't need to change anything else. So that'll be it for database. Alright, our last file we need to go into in Site Setup is the routes file. We just need to make, I believe, 2 changes in here. We may have made them last time, I don't remember, so I'm just going to show you this again. I believe we changed our default controller to login, and then I added a route here. It's route login, and it's just going to login controller. So to go to login controller, open up the first, it'll open up the index.php, or index inside there, the index functions. So, well, that's it for what we need to do for configuration. Next we'll start with the controller. Alright, we need to go into our config directory and we're going to open up config.php. I almost forgot this one. This is one of the most important ones. We're going to scroll down until we find Encryption Key. Anytime we're using a session class, we need an encryption key. The encryption key can be anything you want. It can be the name of the website, it can be some, your daughter or son's name, whatever you want to use. I just, as a joke, I put something in here. That will work. Now if I change this after I upload it and somebody's already got a session, they come back, it's going to automatically delete the session and make them go and log back in. But that's pretty much all we need for this. Alright, so our next step is to create a controller for our login, and we're going to go into controllers, and we're going to create this login.php. Open it here. Now, first thing we need to do, I'm sure you know, is we open up our PHP tag. And then we say class login extend CI controller. Login, the first letter always has to be large, and or capital, whatever you want to call it. And then we're extending the CI controller, and CI controller is obviously capital CI, and then it's got the underscore and the capital C and the rest of the controller word. Okay, so that's it for as far as opening the controller. Now we need to create a function to take us to our view. So we're just going to call it the index function. So we'll call it function index. Now you'll see how this works later, but right now I'm just, if nothing comes through for error, it's automatically setting it to blank. Okay, so then now we're going to check to see if there is an error. Obviously, first time coming through, we're not going to see no error, but if I go in and I type in the wrong password or a username that don't exist, it's going to give me this. So we're going to say if error, we're going to say data login error, which is the data that we're going to set this to that, and it's going to set that to string error that come through when we called the index. Otherwise, we're just going to set the data login error to nothing. We could have just set it equal to error, and then it wouldn't really matter. We probably could really just get rid of this whole if statement and it wouldn't matter whatsoever, but doesn't hurt to have it in there. Okay, so when we do our views, you'll see a few things. You'll see a lot of this stuff that I'm showing you right now. What I do is, so that I can use the same view over and over and over again, is I say data title, which is our title for the screen, and we're going to say login page, which you can put pretty much anything you want in these spots. Then we're going to give it a description. It's just new online login page. I mean, that's just generic for now. We're going to change that down the road. You probably won't see a video with me changing it, but I will probably put a better description in there. This is our keyword for our search engines. I'm just putting noob online and login in there. That's all it needs for now, since it's just a beta anyway. Okay, and then we're going to set our main content. What main content is we're going to tell it where the rest of our view file is. So this is going to be the specific view file. So we're loading, what we're going to end up doing is having a template, and then we're going to have a main content that's loaded inside that template. You'll see once we get to the views, and it'll make a little bit more sense, but for now I'm just going to leave it that way. So then we're going to say this load view, and we're going to be going into the includes directory inside the views. It already knows, because we're right here, because right here it says view, that we're going to be in the views directory. So we're going to use the includes directory, and then we're going to make a template called login template. This will give us our outer template that will end up using this login here. Now what we're doing is we're sending data. So we're sending this whole entire set of data in there. So we're sending this whole array. So we're sending the array of title, description, keyword, and main content. And we're going to be able to use those inside our views to do that. Okay, now once our view is displayed, we type in a name and password, which I will show you before we're done with all of this. We have to come back to this function. So we're calling it function validate login, because we want to validate the login. We want to see if the person's got the login proper. This is just the precursor. We're going to send it down to down to a model, but let me get this done for here. We'll explain this and then we'll look at the model afterwards. Okay, so we're going to say this form validation set rules. So what we're doing is we're setting some rules for the form validation. Okay, we're pulling out username, and it's set to username, and we're just using trim required, which means that it's going to remove any of the crap that don't need to be in there, and then we're requiring it so that it has to be there. So I just put pretty much two if statements here in one line. And then we're going to do the same for the password, and of course password's required. Okay, now this one took me a little bit to find, and I found it and it works really well. We say if this form validation run, which means both of these are true. Well, actually, it's asking if it's false. Okay, if it's false, we're going to send you back to the index, which is up here. Otherwise, we're going to load our model, which is login model, and then we're going to set our string query to this login model validate. Okay, so that's just more or less making sure all this stuff validates. Okay, so if it's true, we're going to redirect you to site index. If it's not true, it's going to set our error, and then we're going to go back to this index sending an error up there. So this will make a little more sense when we get further into this. Pretty much what I'm doing here is when I'm saying query equals this login model validate, it's launching excuse me, it's going into our model and running a program called validate. Once it does that, validate sends back true or false, and then query is either equal to true or to false. So that's pretty much it for our login controller. Okay, so now that we've got our controller all set up and ready to go, we're going to go into our models. Now we're going to create the login model.php. And what we're going to do now, I'll open this up here. This is just like when we create the controller, except for when we open our tag and we do our class login model, which is their name, and we extend the CI model this time. So now there is no index in here because we're not going to just call model without anything at all. So it'll just automatically, if it does come in here, it'll just go right into the function validate, but there's no reason we should be calling it without actually calling a function. Okay, I'm gonna have to show you kind of what I've done for the database, but I think we'll do that next before we go to the views. But anyway, in the database, we're storing a nickname and a password. There's more in there than that, but this will work for now. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go this db where nick, and then we're going to say this input post username. So pretty much what we're doing is we're sending this into the database, and we're saying find in the database where the nick that come in through username is the same. And then we're going to do the same for the password, except for because we're encoding it to MD5, what we need to do is we need to find a password that matches the MD5 version of the password that was put in. So it's going to be a bunch of scrambled letters. So in other words, I can't go into the database and say, oh look, Joe's password is password. Okay, I can't do that. Okay, now for right now, I'm gonna show you this, but we're not gonna go any further. I'm not gonna explain the remember me, because we're not gonna be using it yet until we're ready to use cookies. But all I did was set checkbox equal to this input post remember me, which is that little checkbox. Well, since you haven't seen the screen, you don't know what I'm talking about, but you'll see it when we get there. There'll be a little checkbox for remember me. So, excuse me. So next we're going to say that our query is equal to this database get user. So our database name is user, and we're going to get the database with the table name user. And we're going to say if query numRows equals 1, then we're going to be then we're going to say for each query result as a row. So we're going to be setting this as part of a row is going to be a sorry, I'm having problems today. Yeah, this will be an array. So what we're doing is we're going to pull out the username, which equals Nick. We're going to pull out the password, and it's going to be in the row of password. And same for ID, first name, last name. Now all these things are in the database right now. These are going to be pretty much our basic ones we're going to be using in the database. There's going to be some other ones we're going to add, and then we'll set up a database for other stuff that, you know, isn't as important, but it'll be linked to the user. So then what we're going to do is we're going to set our data array, and we're going to set our username, our ID, and then excuse me, we're going to go name equals, we're going to use our first name variable. I'll put the dot here saying what we're going to open quotes. We're going to open the quote, make a space in there, close it, and then we're going to pull in the last name. Now, user level, since I don't have user level set right yet, later on this is going to be set, and we're going to be using it right now. We're not using user level, so I didn't put it in here, but we're going to, this will actually be a variable, and this will actually give their level, you know, so it'll be either not verified, registered user, if we decide we want to use paid user, or if we want to have, you know, have a banned user, you know, where they're not allowed into the website at all. Anyway, for right now we're just setting it to 1, which is a normal user, which is a registered user. So pretty much, if you're already in the database, doesn't matter what your level is right now, it's just automatically going to set it to 1. Okay, now we're going to set this variable called isLoggedIn. This will actually end up becoming a function later on, and right now we're setting it to true because all this stuff has been true. Okay, and then we're going to go this session set user data, and then we're going to say data, which is this entire array right here, is all your user data. Okay, so that'll set up our session. And now we're going to use the checkbox, which we weren't using yet, but it's okay. I'm gonna just quick zip through this, and because we're gonna touch more on cookies later, but this is going to set a cookie. If the checkbox is checked in, you get this far. Okay, so we're just saying if checkbox equals accept, and you got to have two equals in there if you remember correctly, and an if statement. Okay, and all we're going to do is we're going to go value array. We're going to set an array of values, and we're going to use the ID and username. Okay, then we're going to serialize the value. All this does is kind of scramble it, so kind of like MD5 does, but we can bring it back from being serialized to MD5. You can only read the MD5 version. Okay, then we're going to set a cookie. Well, we're going to set the array for the cookie first, I should say. So we're going to go cookie equals array, and we're going to set the name. As you can see, I set to noob online, which is my website. We're going to set the value. Now that's going to throw both the ID and the username in there. I don't believe I showed you this in config, but there's a thing where you can set the cookie expiration and all this. I prefer to do it this way so I don't have to fight with it. So we're going to set the expiration to 2,410,000, which is, if I remember right, that's exactly a week, because that's how many seconds, or I don't remember exactly what I used. That number is equal to 7 days, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, so then our domain was originally noob online. I got to change this, but that was my original website that got hacked and everything. So that's going to be, I'll change that before I upload it. Actually, it don't even really matter. It can still have the same domain, but you want this really your domain that you're using. If you're using a local host, you'll have to put your IP number in there. Okay, now path, I've never really messed with this much. I know you can go in and add extra paths into this to where it's stored, instead of just leaving it stored right out in the open in their cookies. But I don't feel like doing it, so I just leave the slash in there. We're not using any prefix. Secure, you can set it to true or false. I think I'm actually going to end up changing this to true, because I think this might have been what got me hacked. I'm not positive. I need to read up some more on this. If I do, I will do an update and let you know. But anyway, excuse me. I'm going to set the cookie to the array of cookie, which is our array here. And then we're going to return true. Now, if our if statement that was back up here, if it was not equal to just 1, if it was equal to 0 or 2, which it should never be equal to 2, but if it's equal to 0, it's going to return the false. And then our false will give us our error command. And that is actually it for now for the login model. I don't believe we'll be adding anything to the login model. We'll be working with another model in the next one. So I'm going to show you what my database looks like. I'm not going to actually take you into the real database. I'm going to just recreate it in an Excel spreadsheet and explain it, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so told you I'd show you how my database is set up. It just looks, as far as I'm concerned, it looks too confusing on the website, so I just copied everything into a spreadsheet. So first thing we did is we went and gave everything a name. We have an ID, first name, last name, their nick, the password, email, confirmation code and email we're going to use later. That'll be part of the registration, and the level. as you can see, I started out, I just set the ID to an integer of 11 and the level an integer of 3, which means you can go 3 points out there. So I think 999 would be the highest number I could use in there, and whatever 11 digits is, that'd be quite a big number. But anyway, if I ever need to go bigger, I can always change it. Then everything else is just variable characters, which I just set the 255. Confirmation code I'm actually going to cut down because it only uses, I don't remember how many it uses, but it only uses so many code, so much length when it uses MD5. Nothing in the null group, and our default, this is this pretty much what it's saying is being default, that it's required. It cannot be empty. So we had to put a yes here on confirmation code, which I'll explain later, and it can be null. Now, the only other thing I really need, well, we set level to 1. I mean, it's just so that we got a user level. We haven't worked with the user level yet, and it's just setting it to 1 for the time being. We'll be changing that probably down the road. And the ID needs to be auto-incrementing in this one, because we need each person to have their own separate ID number. So that's actually it for the database. Alright, so next we're going to go into our views directory. We're going to need to create the includes directory. We'll be creating other ones here down the road, including a login directory, which you see right here. That'll be created yet in this video. Okay, so we're going to go in here, and first thing we want to work with is our login template. Okay, so here's our basic login template. We're just setting our doc type to HTML. We're setting our HTML language to English, which is EN. And then we're opening our header tag, and we're gonna set our style sheet. Now, I'm not going to go into depth in this video on the style sheet. I will make a separate video, so if you want to watch the style sheet video, you can. If you don't, you can just skip it. So anyway, we're going to echo the base URL, and we're going to just add in CSS main. So what we're doing is we're putting this in the base directory, in a CSS directory below the base, and then we're going to call it main.css. If you don't want to put this line in your template, that's fine. And then I'm just adding the type text CSS in the media screen. This is pretty much gonna, this top half is all going to be pretty much common in all of our templates, and there will be a couple templates. Okay, and I like using icons. Right now this one's not there. I'll have to create a directory later for it. We're just doing the same thing. We created I'm going to create an image directory, and I'm going to put a logo in there. Pretty much all the logo is just like on YouTube. You see it says YouTube, and then it says the URL after it. That's what that is. Okay, and then our content type is just normal. It's just a normal meta tag, and we're just setting it to text HTML and our character set. Okay, now this is where our stuff from our controller comes in. We're doing a meta name description, we're doing content, and we're opening up our PHP tag, and we're echoing out the description. So this just echoes it into the template. And we're doing the same for the keyword. Now, I set the revisit to 7 days, which works. And then we want the robots you know, spiders, whatever you want to call them, pretty much all. If you don't want them looking at a page, you'll have to look up the meta tag robots and see what exactly you need. I want them doing all pages, which is fine with me. Okay, then we're going to set our title page. We're going to open our title. We're going to open up a PHP, echo out string title, which is part of that data that we sent. Then we're going to close our header, and we're going to work on the body. Now, this is part of my CSS, so I'm not going to really explain it. I just have a CSS div in there. It's container, one that's content, and then what we're doing is we're just going to go this load view string main content. That's that main content. That's that login/login that we put in before. And then we're going to close that div. We're going to open a new div called footer. This is another one that I've created in my CSS. Like I said, if you watch the CSS video, great. If you don't worry about it. You don't have to do this part. Obviously, you can do whatever you want. It's your website. But I'm just showing you how I do my website. Okay, so if we do use footer, we're going to open our PHP tag again. And we're going to say this, load view. And we're going to include the footer, which the footer is the next one we're going to work with. And then we just close off everything, our body and our HTML and our divs that are open. So that is it for the login template. Alright, so we're still in the includes directory. We need to create a footer.php. So we're going to open up our footer, and I kept this really simple. All I did was created a center, and this website is current as of lesson 2. I'm going to update this one with every lesson, so when we get to lesson 3, it'll actually say lesson 3 when you log in. And that is actually it for the footer. Okay, so we're going to stay in the views directory. We're going to create a directory called login, and we're going to go into login, and we're going to create a login.php file, and this is basically going to be just a form. My form don't look right. I got to go back through and edit some things and figure out what I did wrong. It's probably in the CSS, so but I'll show you at the end of the video and you'll see what I'm talking about. So anyway, we're going to open our PHP tag. Now I decided, instead of jumping in and out of PHP tags, that I was just going to echo everything. So I just echo a couple break returns to get us down a little bit. Then we're going to open our form field set, and we're going to call it login. Okay, then we're going to echo, we're going to set UL class errors. Now this is just part of our it's an unordered list, but you'll see how it works here after we get okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go this form validation set error delimiters. Now, because we're using an unordered list, we need to set list in here, and this will actually put it on both sides of everything, of each piece in the list. Now we're going to echo out the validation errors. So any errors that are there, it's going to automatically put the list things on either side of them, so we don't have to do that. And then we're going to go if login error, and we're going to echo out the error. I don't know why I put the LIs in there, but oh well. And then we're just going to close the unordered list, and then we're going to start with our form. We're going to open the form, and the form will go to login validate login, which is our login controller, and it's the function called validate login. Now we're going to set a label of username, and then we're going to go form input username. Now there's other ways of doing this. It's just the way I'm doing it. We're going to come back in, and later on we're going to remove these comments, but registration and forgot password will be in there, but they're going to be, we're going to do those in the next couple lessons. So in those lessons we'll come back into the login.php and add them as we're using them. Okay, so then we're going to set our label for the password, and we're going to set password. And again, I got the forgot password moved out of there. Now, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's because of this div not being there and this little break return at the end that my thing looks like crap. But once we get to the next set, it'll look right. Then we're just going to go div class indent. We're just using one of the classes in our CSS. Like I said, if you don't want to use the CSS, don't use it. I'm not going to twist anybody's arm to use it. We're going to set up the Forum Checkbox, which you remember me talking about that before, and that's set to remember me. And the accept is set to false until you check it. Okay, and I needed to put some space before the checkbox, so I did remember me, and then I put a couple blank spaces in here. There's better ways of doing that, but I couldn't remember what they were, so I just used, non-blank space, or normal blank space, whatever NBS is, yeah. Anyway, so then we come down here, we're going to close the form, and then we're going to close the field set for the form, give a couple more break returns, and that is it for that. We do need, well, I'll just explain it in the next one. Okay, so we're actually back inside the login controller here. If you look at this line right here, if our login is successful, it's going to redirect us to this. So this is your controller. This is the function inside the controller. So what we need to do is we need to go back over here. In our controllers directory, we need to create Site Dot Php. Now, Site Dot Php is very simple. This is actually going to be done a lot different once we get going. We're just going to set it up for right now and leave it the way it is. If you look at this, you look at our index, the index is exactly the same as the rest of the indexes for our index that we created in login. I don't have no keywords set. I don't have a description set. As you can see, it uses site index, so we'll actually go down to views and create the site index as well. And we're also going to have to create, nope, login template's already created, so we won't need that. We're going to end up using a different template here down the road, but for right now, it works just fine. We'll change that when we get there. Okay, so we need to go down into our views directory. We'll open up views, we're going to go down, we're going to create a site directory. We're going to open up that site directory and we're going to create an index.php. Now as you can see, right now our index.php is super simplistic. All we're using, as I put in here, our page content will go here. I'm guessing about 4 or 5 lessons down the road here we're going to be working with this, and we'll be going from there. But for right now, this is all we need. Alright, so here we are at our temporary beta home. We're at noobonline.net46.net. I'll make sure there's a link on the page for you so you can click that. Now, like I said, this looks a little goofy because I'm missing my register and forgot password in here. So anyway, I set up a fake account in there, and I'm going to show you guys how to log into it. Once we get into registration, the fake account's going to be deleted, and we're only going to have the registration information in there. But all I did was call the username Viz, V-I-S, and the password is password. I'll make sure I put a little pop-up box on there so you guys see all that. And then we'll hit log in. Of course, it asks me to remember it, but okay, if you remember right, here's our content. We'll go here, and that's what the website looks like so far. I know it's not a whole lot yet, but the next lesson is going to be a long one. I may have to split it into 2 videos. I think what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to split it into registration and the forgot password as a separate part of it. The next video, I'm actually going to call it lesson 2.5. It'll be all the CSS for this. If you want to watch it, great. If you don't, thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in lesson 3. And please leave any comments that you think are pertinent. You know, anything that any questions you got, let me know. I can always try to help you with stuff. I'll have a link at the end of the video where you can download the code. It will not be there right away, but it will be my homepage on SoulForge. So if you watched the last video, it's the same spot on SoulForge where you picked up the last code if you went and got the code. Other than that, I will see you in the next video.